The myth of the beepocalypse, debunking claims of an impending bee extinction. This article provides a summary of its contents in the following manner. 1. Introduction. Explanation of the importance of bees as pollinators for our food supply. Brief overview of the factors contributing to the decline of bee populations. 2. Habitat loss and fragmentation. Explanation of how habitat loss and fragmentation affect bees. Examples of how human activities have impacted bee habitats. Discussion of the importance of preserving and restoring bee habitats. 3. Pesticides and Chemicals. Explanation of how pesticides and chemicals harm bees. Overview of common chemicals and pesticides that are harmful to bees. Discussion of alternatives to harmful chemicals and pesticides. 4. Diseases and Parasites. Explanation of common bee diseases and parasites. Discussion of the impact of diseases and parasites on bee populations. Overview of methods for controlling and preventing the spread of diseases and parasites. 5. Climate change. Explanation of how climate change affects bees. Overview of the ways in which climate change alters plant blooming patterns and disrupts the bee-plant relationship. Discussion of strategies for adapting to and mitigating the impacts of climate change on bees. 6. Impacts of bee population decline. Explanation of the consequences of bee population decline on our food supply. Discussion of potential economic impacts. Overview of efforts to promote bee conservation and protect our food supply. 7. Conclusion. 1. Introduction. Bees play a crucial role in pollinating many of the crops that make up our food supply. When bees visit flowers to collect nectar and pollen, they inadvertently transfer pollen from the male part of the flower to the female part, fertilizing the flower and enabling it to produce fruit or seeds. This process is known as pollination. Without pollinators like bees, many crops would fail to produce the yields necessary to meet the demands of a growing population. In fact, the USDA estimates that bees are responsible for pollinating approximately 1/3 of the crops grown in the United States, including almonds, apples, avocados, blueberries, cherries, cucumbers, melons, peaches, and pumpkins, among others. In addition to the direct impact on crop yields, the decline of bee populations could have significant economic and ecological consequences. Bees also play a vital role in maintaining biodiversity and supporting other wildlife, such as birds and small mammals, that rely on the same habitats and food sources. Bees are essential to our food supply, and their decline could have far-reaching consequences for our environment and economy. The decline of bee populations is caused by multiple factors, including habitat loss and fragmentation, the use of pesticides and chemicals in agriculture, the spread of diseases and parasites, and the impact of climate change on the timing of plant blooming. These factors have collectively contributed to the decline of bees, which is a significant concern for the health of our environment and the sustainability of our food supply. 2. Habitat loss and fragmentation. Habitat loss and fragmentation can have a significant impact on bees. Bees require diverse and healthy habitats that provide food sources and nesting sites. When natural habitats, such as meadows and forests, are destroyed or fragmented by human activities, such as urbanization or intensive agriculture, the availability of food and nesting sites for bees is reduced. As a result, bee populations can become isolated and less resilient to environmental stressors. In addition, fragmentation can lead to genetic isolation, which can reduce genetic diversity and impair the ability of bees to adapt to changing environmental conditions. The loss of habitat and fragmentation can also lead to competition among bee species for limited resources, which can further reduce populations. Therefore, preserving and restoring bee habitats is crucial for the survival and recovery of bee populations. Human activities have had a significant impact on bee habitats. Some examples include urbanization. The growth of urban areas has led to the destruction and fragmentation of natural habitats, such as meadows and forests, which provide critical food and nesting sites for bees. Agricultural intensification. The intensification of agriculture, including the use of monocultures and the removal of hedgerows and other natural habitats, has reduced the availability of food and nesting sites for bees. Pesticide use. The use of pesticides in agriculture can be harmful to bees, as it can reduce the availability of food sources and harm the health of bees and their colonies. Climate change. Climate change can alter the timing of plant blooming, which can disrupt the delicate balance between bees and the plants they pollinate, reducing the availability of food for bees. Human activities have significantly impacted bee habitats, reducing the availability of food and nesting sites for bees and contributing to the decline of bee populations. Preserving and restoring bee habitats is critical for the survival and recovery of bee populations. Bees require diverse and healthy habitats that provide food sources and nesting sites. When habitats are lost or degraded, bee populations can decline, which can have far-reaching consequences for our environment and economy. Preserving and restoring bee habitats can help ensure the availability of food and nesting sites for bees, which can support healthy bee populations and contribute to the pollination of crops that make up our food supply. In addition, preserving and restoring bee habitats can help support other wildlife that relies on the same habitats and food sources, which can help maintain biodiversity and ecological balance. Preserving and restoring bee habitats can also have economic benefits, as healthy bee populations can contribute to the pollination of crops and support agriculture and food production. In fact, the value of pollination by bees is estimated to be over $15 billion annually in the United States alone. Preserving and restoring bee habitats is crucial for the health of our environment, the sustainability of our food supply, and the economy. Efforts to protect and restore natural habitats, reduce pesticide use, and promote sustainable agriculture can all help support healthy bee populations and preserve the crucial role that bees play in our ecosystem. 3. Pesticides and chemicals. Pesticides and chemicals can harm bees in a variety of ways. Bees can be exposed to pesticides and chemicals through contact with contaminated surfaces or through the ingestion of contaminated pollen and nectar. The toxic effects of pesticides and chemicals can harm the health of individual bees, which can lead to reduced survival rates and impaired reproductive capacity. Pesticides and chemicals can also harm the health of entire bee colonies, as exposure can disrupt the delicate balance within the colony and impair the ability of bees to carry out essential tasks such as foraging, feeding the young, and defending the colony. In addition, exposure to pesticides and chemicals can weaken the immune systems of bees, making them more vulnerable to diseases and parasites. Pesticides and chemicals can also accumulate in bee colonies over time, leading to long-term exposure and potential health impacts. The impact of pesticides and chemicals on bees can be significant, and it is one of the contributing factors to the decline of bee populations worldwide. Reducing the use of pesticides and chemicals in agriculture, promoting sustainable farming practices, and implementing effective pest management strategies can help reduce the exposure of bees to harmful chemicals and support healthy bee populations. There are several common chemicals and pesticides that are known to be harmful to bees, including neonicotinoid. Neonicotinoid are a class of systemic pesticides that are widely used in agriculture. These pesticides can be highly toxic to bees, impairing their ability to forage, navigate, and communicate. Organophosphates. Organophosphates are another class of pesticides that are commonly used in agriculture. These pesticides can be highly toxic to bees, causing paralysis and death. Pyrethroids are a class of synthetic pesticides that are used in both agriculture and residential settings. These pesticides can be highly toxic to bees, impairing their nervous system and causing paralysis. Glyphosate is a commonly used herbicide that can also have toxic effects on bees. Exposure to glyphosate can reduce the survival and reproductive capacity of bees, as well as impair their immune system. Chlorpyrifos is an insecticide that has been linked to negative health impacts in bees, including impaired learning and memory, reduced foraging activity, and decreased survival rates. The use of these and other chemicals and pesticides in agriculture can have significant negative impacts on bee populations. Reducing the use of these harmful chemicals and promoting sustainable farming practices can help reduce the exposure of bees to these toxic substances and support healthy bee populations. There are several alternatives to harmful chemicals and pesticides that can be used in agriculture to support healthy bee populations. Some examples include Integrated Pest Management, IPM. IPM is an approach to pest management that uses a combination of strategies to minimize the use of pesticides. This can include techniques such as crop rotation, pest-resistant crops, and the use of natural predators and parasites to control pests. Biological controls. Biological controls are a form of pest management that uses living organisms such as insects, bacteria, and fungi to control pests. These controls can be highly effective and can reduce the need for chemical pesticides. Organic farming. Organic farming practices rely on natural inputs and methods to control pests and promote healthy crops. This can include techniques such as composting, crop rotation, and the use of natural fertilizers and pest controls. Habitat restoration. Restoring natural habitats can provide bees with a variety of food sources and nesting sites, which can support healthy bee populations and reduce the need for chemical pesticides. Crop diversification. Planting a diverse range of crops can support healthy bee populations by providing a variety of food sources and reducing the reliance on single crop monocultures that can be more susceptible to pests and diseases. Promoting sustainable and environmentally friendly farming practices can help reduce the use of harmful chemicals and pesticides and support healthy bee populations. Implementing these alternatives can help protect the health of bees, promote biodiversity, and support a sustainable food supply. 4. Diseases and parasites. Bees can be affected by a variety of diseases and parasites that can have negative impacts on their health and the health of the colony. Some common bee diseases and parasites include Varroa mites. Varroa mites are a type of parasitic mite that feed on the bodily fluids of honeybees. These mites can weaken the bee's immune system, making them more vulnerable to diseases and infections. Nosema. Nosema is a fungal disease that can infect the digestive tract of bees, leading to reduced digestive function and decreased survival rates. American foulbrood. American foulbrood is a bacterial disease that can affect bee larvae, causing them to die and leaving behind a foul-smelling residue in the colony. Chalk brood. Chalk brood is a fungal disease that can infect bee larvae, causing them to turn into a hard, chalk-like substance. Deformed wing virus. Deformed wing virus is a viral disease that can cause deformities in the wings of bees, impairing their ability to fly and forage. These diseases and parasites can spread quickly within a colony, leading to significant negative impacts on bee populations. Effective management strategies, such as regular monitoring and treatment, can help prevent the spread of these diseases and parasites and support healthy bee populations. The impact of diseases and parasites on bee populations can be significant. Bees play a crucial role in pollinating crops and supporting food production, but when they are affected by diseases and parasites, their ability to perform this important task can be compromised. Diseases and parasites can weaken bee immune systems and make them more susceptible to other threats, such as environmental stressors and pesticide exposure. They can also reduce the lifespan and reproductive capacity of bees, which can lead to declines in bee populations over time. Varroa mites, in particular, are a major threat to bee populations. These mites can spread quickly within a colony, and their feeding habits can weaken the bees' immune systems, making them more susceptible to other diseases and parasites. Varroa mites have been linked to significant declines in bee populations worldwide, and effective management strategies are needed to control their spread. Other diseases and parasites, such as nosema and American foulbrood, can also have significant negative impacts on bee populations. Effective management strategies, such as regular monitoring and treatment, can help prevent the spread of these diseases and parasites and support healthy bee populations. The impacts of diseases and parasites on bee populations highlight the importance of promoting sustainable and environmentally friendly farming practices, reducing the use of harmful chemicals and pesticides, and implementing effective management strategies to support healthy bee populations. Controlling and preventing the spread of diseases and parasites is crucial for maintaining healthy bee populations. Here are some common methods for controlling and preventing the spread of bee diseases and parasites. Integrated Pest Management, IPM. IPM is an approach to pest management that uses a combination of strategies to minimize the use of pesticides. This can include techniques such as crop rotation, pest-resistant crops, and the use of natural predators and parasites to control pests. Monitoring. Regular monitoring of bee colonies can help detect diseases and parasites early on, allowing for quick treatment and prevention of their spread. Chemical treatments. Chemical treatments can be used to control the spread of diseases and parasites, but should be used judiciously and in accordance with best management practices to minimize harm to bees and the environment. Hive management. Proper hive management practices, such as cleaning and disinfecting equipment and replacing old comb, can help prevent the spread of diseases and parasites within colonies. Breeding and genetic selection. Breeding and genetic selection of bees for resistance to diseases and parasites can help reduce their spread and support healthy bee populations. Quarantine measures. Quarantine measures can be used to prevent the spread of diseases and parasites between colonies and apiaries. Effective control and prevention of bee diseases and parasites requires a comprehensive and integrated approach that considers a range of management strategies. By implementing these strategies and promoting healthy bee populations, we can help support sustainable agriculture and food production. 5. Climate change. Climate change can have significant impacts on bee populations by altering the availability of resources and exposing bees to new environmental stressors. Here are some ways in which climate change can affect bees. Changes in flowering patterns. Changes in temperature and precipitation patterns can alter the timing and abundance of flowering plants, which can impact the availability of food for bees. Habitat loss and fragmentation. Climate change can also contribute to habitat loss and fragmentation, as changes in temperature and precipitation patterns can alter the distribution and quality of suitable habitat for bees. Increased exposure to pests and pathogens. Climate change can also increase the prevalence of pests and pathogens that can harm bee populations, such as Varroa mites and nosema. Extreme weather events. Extreme weather events, such as floods and droughts, can also impact bee populations by destroying habitats and reducing the availability of food resources. Range shifts and distribution changes. Climate change can also cause range shifts and changes in the distribution of bee species, which can impact the availability of pollination services for crops. The impacts of climate change on bees highlight the importance of taking action to mitigate its effects, such as promoting sustainable land use practices and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. By supporting healthy bee populations, we can help ensure the resilience of our food systems and the health of our ecosystems. Climate change can disrupt the relationship between bees and plants by altering the timing and patterns of plant blooming, which can impact the availability of food resources for bees. Here are some ways in which climate change can alter plant blooming patterns. Shifts in flowering time, changes in temperature and precipitation patterns can cause plants to bloom earlier or later than usual, which can impact the timing of food availability for bees. Changes in plant species composition. Climate change can also lead to changes in the composition of plant communities, as some species may thrive while others decline in response to changing environmental conditions. Range shifts and distribution changes. Changes in temperature and precipitation patterns can also cause plant species to shift their ranges or alter their distribution, which can impact the availability of pollination services for crops. Increased competition. Climate change can also increase competition for resources among plant species, which can impact the quality and quantity of resources available to bees. These changes in plant blooming patterns can disrupt the bee-plant relationship by reducing the availability of food resources for bees, which can impact their reproductive success and overall health. In turn, this can impact the pollination services provided by bees, which are crucial for the production of many crops. By understanding the impacts of climate change on the bee-plant relationship, we can develop strategies to mitigate its effects and support healthy ecosystems and food systems. Adapting to and mitigating the impacts of climate change on bees requires a multifaceted approach that includes a combination of strategies to support healthy bee populations and address the root causes of climate change. Here are some strategies for adapting to and mitigating the impacts of climate change on bees. Promoting sustainable land use practices. Sustainable land use practices, such as reducing tillage and promoting cover crops, can help support healthy bee populations by providing diverse and abundant food sources. Restoring and conserving habitats. Conserving and restoring bee habitats can help mitigate the impacts of habitat loss and fragmentation caused by climate change. Reducing pesticide use. Reducing the use of harmful chemicals and pesticides can help mitigate the impacts of climate change on bee populations by reducing the risk of pesticide exposure and toxicity. Supporting genetic diversity. Supporting genetic diversity in bee populations can help increase their resilience to changing environmental conditions and reduce their susceptibility to diseases and parasites. Promoting research and monitoring. Promoting research and monitoring of bee populations and their habitats can help improve our understanding of the impacts of climate change on bees and inform the development of effective strategies for adaptation and mitigation. Adapting to and mitigating the impacts of climate change on bees requires a comprehensive approach that addresses the root causes of climate change while promoting the health and resilience of bee populations and their habitats. By taking action to support healthy bee populations, we can help ensure the resilience of our food systems and the health of our ecosystems in the face of climate change. 6. Impacts of bee population decline. Bees are vital pollinators of many of the fruits, vegetables, and nuts that make up a large portion of our diets. Without bees, our food supply would be greatly impacted, with significant consequences for both human health and the global economy. Here are some of the consequences of bee population decline on our food supply. Reduced crop yields. Bees are responsible for pollinating many of the crops that make up a large portion of our diets, including almonds, apples, blueberries, cherries, avocados, and many others. Without bees, these crops would experience reduced yields and lower quality, which would drive up food prices and impact global food security. Loss of biodiversity. Bees are important pollinators of wildflowers and other plants, which play a crucial role in maintaining biodiversity and healthy ecosystems. A decline in bee populations could lead to a loss of plant diversity and impact the health of other species that rely on these plants for food and habitat. Impact on human health. A decline in the availability of nutritious fruits and vegetables could have significant impacts on human health, leading to increased rates of malnutrition, obesity, and other diet-related diseases. Economic impacts. The loss of bees and their pollination services could have significant economic impacts, affecting the livelihoods of farmers, beekeepers, and other industries that rely on these crops for their business. The consequences of bee population decline on our food supply are significant, with potential impacts on human health, biodiversity, and the global economy. It is crucial that we take action to support healthy bee populations and ensure the resilience of our food systems and ecosystems. The decline in bee populations could have significant economic impacts, affecting the livelihoods of farmers, beekeepers, and other industries that rely on these crops for their business. Here are some potential economic impacts of bee population decline. Reduced crop yields. As mentioned earlier, bees play a vital role in pollinating many of the crops that make up a large portion of our diets. Without bees, crop yields would be significantly reduced, resulting in higher food prices and reduced availability of some food items. Reduced agricultural productivity. Many crops rely on bees for pollination, and the decline in bee populations could reduce agricultural productivity and profitability. This could impact the incomes of farmers and other agricultural workers, as well as the overall economic viability of agricultural industries. Impact on the honey industry. Beekeepers rely on bees to produce honey and other bee-related products. A decline in bee populations could impact the viability of the honey industry, potentially leading to job losses and economic impacts for honey producers and related industries. Reduced ecosystem services. Bees play a crucial role in maintaining healthy ecosystems and providing ecosystem services, such as pollination. A decline in bee populations could result in reduced ecosystem services, leading to economic impacts in industries that rely on these services, such as ecotourism. The economic impacts of bee population decline are significant, with potential impacts on agricultural productivity, food security, and related industries. It is crucial that we take action to support healthy bee populations and ensure the resilience of our food systems and ecosystems. Efforts to promote bee conservation and protect our food supply have gained momentum in recent years, with governments, NGOs, and individuals taking action to support healthy bee populations. Here are some of the ways in which bee conservation efforts are being promoted. Habitat restoration. Efforts to restore and protect bee habitats, such as wildflower meadows and other natural areas, can help provide bees with the food and shelter they need to thrive. Programs to incentivize farmers to set aside land for wildflowers and other bee-friendly plants can also help create important habitat for bees. Reduced use of pesticides. Reducing the use of harmful pesticides and chemicals can help protect bees and other pollinators from their harmful effects. Alternative pest management strategies, such as integrated pest management, can help reduce the use of pesticides while still protecting crops from pests. Beekeeper support. Providing support and resources to beekeepers can help promote healthy bee populations and ensure the viability of the honey industry. This may include education on beekeeping practices, access to funding for equipment and supplies, and research on bee health. Climate change mitigation. Addressing the root causes of climate change, such as reducing greenhouse gas emissions, can help mitigate the impacts of climate change on bees and their habitats. Additionally, Promoting adaptation strategies, such as planting climate-resilient crops, can help ensure the long-term viability of our food systems. Public education and awareness. Educating the public on the importance of bees and their role in our food systems can help promote support for bee conservation efforts. Additionally, individuals can take action to support bees, such as planting bee-friendly plants and avoiding the use of harmful pesticides in their gardens. Efforts to promote bee conservation and protect our food supply are critical for ensuring the resilience of our food systems and ecosystems. By taking action to support healthy bee populations, we can help ensure the long-term viability of our food supply and promote the health of our planet. 7. Conclusion. Climate change is a significant threat to bee populations, as it alters plant blooming patterns and disrupts the bee-plant relationship. As temperatures rise and weather patterns become more unpredictable, many plant species are blooming earlier or later than usual, making it difficult for bees to synchronize their foraging patterns with the availability of food sources. Climate change can also lead to more extreme weather events, such as droughts or floods, which can further impact bee habitats and food sources. For example, prolonged droughts can cause plants to produce fewer flowers, reducing the availability of food for bees. To adapt to and mitigate the impacts of climate change on bees, efforts are underway to promote climate-resilient beekeeping practices and to identify plant species that are more resilient to changing weather patterns. Additionally, efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and address the root causes of climate change are critical for protecting the long-term viability of bee populations and their habitats. Individuals can also take action to support bee populations in the face of climate change. Planting bee-friendly plants that are adapted to local climate conditions can help provide bees with the food and shelter they need to thrive. Additionally, reducing personal greenhouse gas emissions, such as by using public transportation or choosing energy-efficient appliances, can help mitigate the impacts of climate change on bee populations and the environment as a whole. Addressing the impacts of climate change on bee populations is critical for protecting the long-term viability of our food systems and promoting the health of our planet. By taking action to support climate-resilient beekeeping practices and promoting awareness of the impacts of climate change on bees, we can help ensure the resilience of our food systems and the health of our ecosystems. Thanks for watching.